So, Nick, tell us about National Treasure.
Benjamin Franklin Gates is a treasure hunter who's on a mission to vindicate his family name, because there was an old family story that one of the old signers of the Declaration of Independence entrusted his great however many times.
His grandfather's grandfather, Nick.
His grandfather's grandfather's grandfather.
No, just his grandfather's grandfather.
With a secret to a treasure, but not the treasure, the treasure of all treasures. And the clues to getting to this treasure are hidden in all of these different American documents and ships and whatnot. And he's on a mission to basically prove that this treasure exists and that his family isn't crazy, because his family is well known for trying to find this and fund this, and everybody just kind of wrote them off as kooks because every single clue led to another clue, led to another clue, and nobody believed that it was a real thing until it was.
I think that's a pretty solid representation of the movie, Nick.
And I think this is one of the only movies where Sean Bean doesn't die in it.
Kent, can you confirm you've probably seen every movie that Sean Bean has been in? How many movies does he die in?
Pretty much all of them.
Movies, TV shows, even a video game. The video game Oblivion that came out in 2006. His character dies.
Dies in it?
Yeah.
He's really good at dying, I guess.
He is good at dying. So what I used, I think I used yesterday, we were talking about it. This is the, we'll call it early 21st century Indiana Jones. I mean, this is what there's a lot of adventure. It's a little bit supernatural, farcical, things like that. But it's very much in the same vein as Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just for a different generation. I guess the thing that makes this one a little more interesting, I'm not saying it's a better movie than Raiders of the Lost Ark, but the Raiders of the Lost Ark, all that has to do with, the Ark of the Covenant, foreign treasures, things like that. For this is about the Declaration of Independence. This is about, the founding fathers. And while, you can't take everything literally as actual history, the fact that it is based in early American history is something that makes it rather unique. And I thought, anyway, for me, as I watched the movie, I find that stuff interesting. The early stages of our country and how it was developed. Again, we all know it's a movie. It's not going to be historically accurate, but basing this stuff in American history, early American history, to me anyway, was very interesting.
What do you think, Kent?
I was waiting on you, but I will.
I can go. I remember seeing this movie. I did not see it in theaters the first time I watched it, but I saw it shortly thereafter. And Kent, as I rewatched it this week, I realized I must have watched this movie way more than I remembered as a young or a late stage teenage boy, because I remember direct lines of this thing, straight to the inflection point on some of the characters' voices, and just how goofy and wild of a ride this is. I think it is ultimately a very entertaining movie, even if it is. I mean, the plot is so funny to me because they're having the conversation, he's going to steal the Declaration of Independence. And they're basically implying this guy's a monster for wanting to steal. And he's like, we're going to have to steal it instead.
To protect it.
Yeah, it's what does he say? We're not treasure hunters, we're treasure protectors. But you never said that at any point in the movie except for that one line. It's a very goofy movie, and yet I found myself enjoying the watch yet again. It's a fun ride, and I think it moves at such a pace where you never really have to sit in the maybe strangeness of it all. And so I find the watch of minute one, I mean, it dives in, hey, let's go back into the founding part of the country, and then it zips to the present. And then, I mean, really, it just goes and goes and goes. And so I enjoy it for that sake.
I love this movie because it hits basically every single type of thing that I like. I like fun conspiracies.
Nice.
Like this. I like the early American history. That time period, I think it's fascinating. Treasure hunting is incredible. It's one of my favorite tropes in general because it's always fun. And I mean, the comedy, sometimes it's cheesy and a little much, but I think it fits extremely well within the context of the whole thing. And it's just a fun world traveling kind of adventure, and it's very easy to follow and digest.
Very.
It just makes sense.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Kent,
it can make sense.
You almost look like the cat that ate the canary here.
Kent.
Here's what this movie really is. Okay.
Oh.
It is your Indiana Jones knockoff merged. Did you notice who the producer of this thing was?
Jerry Bruckheimer.
So you have all the explosions and action and blah, 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 blah. That was written by 4 people get credit for the screenplay and 4 more get credit for the story. What is the rule? Anything more than 3 people, you've got a blah story.
Oh no.
I mean, it's nothing original, right? There's no, and you get that weird change of tone in dialogue, right? Where it's trying to be funny here, and then, like Josh said, made a reference to be something clear at the end of the movie that was never brought up at any time earlier, because it's this cobbled together thing designed to be exactly what it is that you guys like, this sort of high energy entertainment, right? When I wrote about it, when it came out, I just wrote, look, A, the story is preposterous. B, nothing in this thing could ever happen in reality. Okay. You accept those 2 things, and it's a popcorn movie that's, a good ride. And that's really what it is.
Ken, do you think that they realized what kind of hit they had on their hands? I mean, it cost them, according to Wikipedia, the budget was $100 million. So it's obviously going to be more than that given the advertising and all those things. But it makes close to $350 million.
Jeez,
so, I mean, it's an expensive movie to make, but it also has a great ROI on it. Do you think that they realized that it was going to be that kind of hit?
It's a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. He was a producer. That is the Jerry Bruckheimer formula that kind of worked up until computers took over everything, right?
Sure.
Because much of the cost of these movies are those like extravagant sets and explosions and stuff like that. They had to build that whole set where they're going down underneath the church in New York, right? They had to build that whole thing, then destroy it, basically. And that's expensive, right? That's a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. And my guess is, well, I know this because it was so American, it didn't get the international box office as much as some of Bruckheimer's other movies have gotten, but it probably made more than what Wikipedia is saying when you roll in all the foreign markets, and then you roll in, all the how many times it got sold. It was one of those that got sold first to HBO, then to regular TV.
Well, and this was back in the era where you could still rent things from Blockbuster, so I'm guessing the Blockbuster sales on this movie were great too.
And so everybody made a ton of money, and people enjoyed it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's also no reason to say this is some kind of great movie.
Yeah.
I don't think that movies necessarily have to have unique plot to be good. It's a pretty paint by the numbers treasure hunting kind of movie, but I think it's still enjoyable. It's still fun. I think it can still be a good movie without it having to. It doesn't have to break new ground.
Well, it certainly does not do that.
Well, I'm not saying that every movie has to break new ground, but this one seems really cobbled together from, we got these ideas from here and we got these ideas from here, and we'll put them all together into something just a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
Was it a product of its time? It's 2004. In terms of why it was so popular.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was. And remember that this is Nick Cage at his peak. He could open movies then. And it was post 9/11, which I think made a little difference towards its popularity. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question, and this might be an extremely far-fetched question.
Awesome.
The Da Vinci Code came out a year before this movie did. Do you think people getting into that book led to the popularity of this movie as well before the Da Vinci Code?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're clearly related. And then the Da Vinci Code movie came, what?
2006.
I was going to say 4 or 5 years later. So it's a continuum. Absolutely.
That's a good comparison, Nick. Yeah, because they have a lot of the similar ideas, right? Where that's a treasure, that's a hunt for the Holy Grail. This is a hunt for. Does this treasure have a name?
It's just the treasure.
No, the treasure.
Yeah, it's just
it's like it's treasure from everywhere period of time.
And if you look at it in that sense, if you think about it, look at all the treasure hunting movies that have had the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, this series on History Channel, the Curse of Oak Island, where they think trying to find treasure on some island in Nova Scotia. They think it's, the Holy Grail might be buried here, or Solomon's menorah, or whatever. Sure it is. Yeah,
and
that's in a hole in the ground in Nova Scotia.
And that's, I think, one of the things that people like about this, or they liked about the Da Vinci Code, was that in theory, it is treasure that is somewhere among us. You don't have to go out into the forest. The clues are going to, in this case, it leads back to a church. Spoiler alert for the Da Vinci Code. That is below the Louvre, is where the Holy Grail is supposedly at the end of the book and in the movie. And so I think that that's something that people like too. And I mean, Ken, I think you bring up an interesting point with the time that this is released in terms of post 9/11. I would say that this is maybe not so much a wave the flag patriot movie, but it's definitely a, hey, let's celebrate American history. But as Nick said, it's a fun conspiracy, whereas now all the conspiracies suck and they're really, really dark.
I think another fun part about this too is all the clues were kind of hidden in plain sight, like minus the declaration, obviously, but like where they got Ben Franklin's spectacles. Like that was just
it's
up
just
there.
in a wall.
It was just in a wall. It was just up there. And I think it made people kind of feel like, hey, I could do something like this. And I think that made it weirdly relatable to some people as well.
Normally, Kent, a movie like this, or any movie that's really, really fast paced, can be to its detriment. But for something like this, which seems to be going at full speed from start to finish, did that actually do it a favor because you could brush over the obvious flaws or the plot holes, or just how how everything went?
Absolutely it does. And so does the let's just say there wasn't a ton of character development in this movie.
No.
So you're dealing with these types, or whatever you want to call them, right? Rather than worrying about here's what's happening. Like, yeah, there's a quote romance, but it's not really you don't know anything. It's just kind of there, those kind of things. So you don't have that kind of a movie. So it propels that way, right? You're not developing the characters or anything beyond we know this about this guy's family. All of a sudden he's in the Arctic digging up a ship, right? I mean, that's the development. Jaboing,
well, especially Kent, the what is the character's name? Riley. I mean, his whole purpose is he's a nerd and he's just gonna wisecrack the whole time. I mean, his first line of dialogue is a wisecrack in the back seat, and then they're like, should we leave him here? And off to the races we go. He's like that until the last scene of the movie where he's bitching about the amount of money that they got for the treasure.
A lousy 1%.
As he gets into his nice red Ferrari and cannot drive off of the road very well, or leave the driveway. So like, he is that the museum lady, or whatever you want to call her. What is her job? Abigail Chase. She's an archivist for the National Archives. I mean, maybe she has the most development, but hers is just like, I don't like what you're doing, but also it's kind of fun, so I'll be along for the ride.
One of my favorite sorry, Ken.
Well, I was just going to mention her because it's worth saying. Her name is Diane Kruger. It's spelled like American Diane, but she's German, which is hence why they had to include the line about Anglo-Saxon.
The Dutch.
Her accent, yeah.
Yeah, it's because she has that accent. And she has turned out to be a great actress. If you watch her European films, she's way more than this, ingenue running around with Nick Cage in an action movie. She turned out to be a very good actress. So Now, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's so I've seen this movie a bunch.
Sure.
But I mean, I was a kid. So I'm finally watching it with adult eyes as an adult. And one of my favorite interactions in this movie now, I think, happens between him and her when they're talking about her Washington campaign buttons that she collects.
Mm-hmm.
And he's essentially saying that she is also a treasure hunter because she said it with like in a kind of derogatory, like, "Oh, you're a treasure hunter." But then he notices her collection, and then he's like, "You're also a treasure hunter." He says it without saying it, and then she kind of has like a look on her face, going back to how good of an actress she is. I think that moment between those two characters right there is kind of what started the one person who had character development. Her development was just that interaction.
By the way, J-Man points out, Kent, she was great in Troy and in Inglourious Bastards. She was awesome in Inglourious Bastards.
That was her in Inglourious Bastards.
Yes. Yeah, with the voice.
Oh.
Yep, she's very good in that movie.
She's really good. The campaign button thing triggered. Here are 2 or 3 things that triggered me.
Okay.
Let's go.
Sometimes Nick gets triggered by these little things, right?
All the time, yeah.
I am not sure that George Washington had campaign buttons, as in the fact that I don't believe he ever had any opposition when he ran.
No.
Right? So why would he? I don't think he campaigned, number one. Number two, I think the campaign button is actually a few decades away from actually being created in 1770 or 89 or whenever it would have been the first presidential election. That's number one. Number two, the Declaration of Independence, the actual copy of it, you can't read the writing. It faded.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's on display in the National Archives is a what do they call it? Contemporaneous copy. The scribe made more than one of them. Right.
Yeah.
And it's one of the other ones. But the real one is all faded, and I don't believe it's even on display anymore. So
I was going to say, where is it? Yeah.
Those are 2 things that I went, huh? You know,
I remember.
I will say I did not notice those when it came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I sure did this time for some reason.
Interesting. You mentioned Jerry Bruckheimer before, and just looking at his, and we've had a couple of his movies. Most recent one was the Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F, that came out on Netflix. But when you look at, I mean, just look at the movies that he did only for Paramount. American Gigolo, which would be big hit. Flashdance, Beverly Hills Cop, Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Days of Thunder, Top Gun Maverick. I mean, and that's just what he did for that studio. When you look at what he did for Walt Disney, Crimson Tide, The Rock, Armageddon, Remember the Titans, Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, this guy was of all the money printing movie people out there, he has got to be on the Mount Rushmore of printing money when his name is attached to a movie.
Yeah, for 20 years he did that. Yeah. I mean, at least 20 years. Yeah, What
is it about him, Ken? Like, obviously, I mean, you know, his movies have a particular flair to him, but what do you think it is about the way he sees movies, or maybe what he knows about the movie-going audience that has allowed him to tap into that so often over the decades?
I think 2 things. One, that he's willing to spend the money on the big action movies in its time, right? So you got the big action movie, number one. Number two, if you look at those lists, they're all very, what do you want to call it? Crowd pleasing kind of stories.
Yeah.
Right? You know, there's not a ton of serious drama there, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
And I think those 2 things, and he had sense enough to hire good people to make these kind of movies, right? I mean, you know, Nicolas Cage at that time was at his peak, and he was being taken seriously as an actor as well as a action kind of star. You know, I don't know that John Turteltaub is the world's greatest director, but he certainly had some, knew how to direct a hit movie at that time. And I think it's all those factors kind of rolled into one. And, it was a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. And, most of those, when you go through that list, most of them didn't land on top 10 lists, but he didn't care.
No.
That wasn't the intent, and he
made a lot of money.
Made a lot of money, and they're, by and large, pretty entertaining movies.
Yep, for sure.